Welcome to the training session on the Say All Fast Minute Everyday Shuffled strategy, SAFMEDS for short. This project is a collaboration between researchers at Bangor University and the Regional School Effectiveness and Improvement Service for North Wales, GWER. Throughout today's session, we will be discussing the resources that we have created as part of the SAFMEDS GWER package, as well as talking to you about some of the background research and pedagogy in this field. If you are interested in doing some background reading, you can follow some of the useful references at the bottom of the slides. Learners in primary, secondary, further and higher education can use the SAFMED strategy to help build fluency of basic facts. Today's session will focus on the application of the SAFMED strategy to mathematics and numeracy development. However, you can apply it to other skills across the curriculum too. For example, pupils could practice reading high-frequency words, learn the names of the elements on the periodic table, or even learn the corresponding dates to important historical events. If you haven't already, we recommend that you watch the precision teaching training before proceeding with the rest of this video. This will help to provide you with some of the additional context surrounding theory and terminology. The precision teaching session also covers topics such as learning channels, fluency aims, and plotting data on the standard acceleration chart. You can find the links to this training at the bottom of the current slide, and we've also put the direct link in the video description box for your convenience. On this slide and the next, you'll see the timestamps for the different sections of this training. If you're revisiting this presentation for a recap on a particular aspect, you can fast forward to the corresponding part of the video now. For those of you who are joining for the first time, today's session will start by introducing the SAFMED strategy, and then move on to how to introduce it to the pupils within your classroom. We will then summarise the numeracy resources that are freely available to you as part of the SAFMEDS GWER package. We will then address some frequently asked questions about printing the cards if you opt to use the handheld approach with your pupils. To end, we'll present some previous feedback from teachers and pupils who have used the strategy in their classroom. Say All Fast Minute Everyday Shuffled, or SAFMEDS, is a practice and assessment strategy that makes effective use of flashcards to build fluency of fact-based skills. Something I really want to stress here is that SAFMEDS is not a strategy that aims to teach new skills. Rather, we can use it to assess how well a pupil understands things that they've already been taught, and as a strategy to practice skills until they're able to perform them fluently. Also, SAFMEDS in itself is not an intervention strategy. The intervention aspect comes from reviewing pupil data regularly and making changes when necessary. Making database decisions based off progress is a pivotal part of the precision teaching method. SAFMEDS is an application of precision teaching when used in conjunction with a standard acceleration chart and database decisions. With many older students using flashcards to revise content for statutory exams, the SAFMEDS strategy may provide a more robust and effective alternative to help them retain key facts. An additional advantage of the strategy is that it promotes independence. Pupils hold, direct, and receive feedback from their own deck of cards during each 1-minute time trial. This means that unless a pupil needs specific one-to-one support, a member of staff can supervise a group of pupils during any given time trial. As pupils become increasingly confident with the strategy, group sizes can be scaled up. We strongly recommend starting with a group of between 5 and 10 pupils before considering class-wide implementation, to ensure that all pupils are able to follow each step of the strategy correctly. Otherwise, they may develop undesirable habits that may lead to less rapid fluency progress. By design, precision teaching strategies alter instruction and materials on a pupil-by-pupil basis, using database decisions. If you start using the SAFMED strategy with a pupil and the CSAY learning channel is not appropriate, then please refer to the precision teaching session linked in the description box for advice on designing alternative resources or adaptations. Whilst the SAFMED strategy can be, and has been used with pupils with additional learning needs, there may be some instances where an alternative to flashcards is necessary, such as if a pupil finds holding or manipulating the cards challenging. When pupils start fluency training, they shouldn't be worrying about getting the answers wrong. Rather, we want them to focus on being able to answer the cards as quickly as they can. Pupils should be able to answer most, if not all, of the cards in the pack accurately on their first attempt. Use any mathematics and numeracy data that you have to guide your decisions about packs to practice, such as national test data, classwork, or your personal judgment. If you're in doubt, it will not cause any harm for the pupils to assess and build fluency of slightly easier but complementary skills first. Use their time trial data and learning pictures to then guide progression through the packs. If you're introducing pupils to the SAFMEDS strategy for the first time, they may benefit from practicing easier questions than you know that they are capable of. This will help them to focus on following each step of the strategy correctly, rather than the computation element. If a pupil develops bad habits early on and does not follow all of the stages of the SAFMEDS strategy closely, you may find that they do not progress towards their fluency aims as quickly as desired. Okay, so let's jump into what materials each pupil will need to complete a time trial using the SAFMEDS strategy. First, each pupil will need a pack of around 50 flashcards. Each card should have a question or a statement on the front and the correct answer on the back. We have some ready to print and use packs to support the 4 to 6 years continuum available on the GWER Support Centre. We will discuss this in more detail later in the training. They will also need access to a timer. We recommend using one that makes a noise when the 1 minute is up. Next, they'll need a pencil and something to write their score on. This can be a blank piece of paper, or if you prefer, we have score tables that you can print and download. You'll be able to find these on the GWER Support Centre. To visualise their progress, pupils will need to plot their best score of the day on the standard acceleration chart. We will put the link to the websites where you can order or freely download these in the description box. And finally, if you're working with younger pupils, they may find it useful to have a placemat to separate their correct and not yet cards more clearly during the timing. Over the next few slides, we will demonstrate the SAFMEDS strategy in action. First, we'll talk through each step slowly to explain the rationale. First, pupils should shuffle the cards in the pack. This prevents them from serial learning the order of the answers and saves learning answers in sections and compiling them later. Next, set a timer for 1 minute. The pupils can do this themselves, or if you're running the trials for a group, you can set the timer so that they can all start at the same time. Trials are kept short to prevent fatigue, promote engagement, and to focus on fluency. Once the timer starts, pupils should work through the cards as quickly as they can. They should hold and direct their own cards if they're able to do so. They should read the question on the front of the card in their head to help with fluency and then say the answer out loud. This helps to validate to anyone observing the timing that the pupil did know the answer. The pupil should then turn the card over to receive immediate feedback from the back of the card. If they answer correctly, they'll place that card in their correct pile. If the pupil says the answer incorrectly, hesitates for too long, or says I don't know, then they'll place their card in the not yet pile. However, it's important that they say the correct answer before moving on to reduce the chances of them rehearsing the incorrect response in future. Remember, the aim of the game here is speed. If a pupil needs to pause for more than a few seconds on any given card, prompt them to treat it as a not yet. They'll have the opportunity to review it later. The pupil should keep working through the cards at speed until the timer stops. After the timer is finished, pupils should count how many cards they placed in the correct and not yet piles, and then write their score down. If you, as their teacher, have observed a time trial from the shuffle through to writing their score down, make a note of this. You'll notice that the printable score tables on the GWER Support Centre have a checked by column to facilitate this. Observed time trials give you an anchor point to be able to guide your interpretation of pupils' scores. If their scores deviate significantly between observed and non-observed time trials, then you may need to consider an intervention. More on this later in the training. Next, give pupils the opportunity to review any cards that they placed in their not yet pile without any time pressure. You may see this referred to as the error correction step. Here, pupils can use any strategies that they need to learn the answer, whether that be visual aids, repetition, or using a pen and paper. They may also ask for help from a peer or adult if they need additional instruction or advice on a faster strategy to reach the answer. Once a pupil is able to answer all of the cards in their not yet pile correctly, they can put all of the cards back together, shuffle, and go again. In order to see fluency progress, pupils need to practice using the SAFMEDS strategy regularly. Ideally, this should be once a day, but if this isn't possible, run 3 time trials per sitting 3 times per week. At the end of each session, pupils should plot their best score on their standard acceleration chart to create a picture of their learning over time. This is a specially designed chart to proportionately show meaningful progress towards mastery across a school year. You can use the chart to make data-informed decisions about progress and to guide interventions. We discuss this in detail during the Precision Teaching training linked in the description. You may find it more practical to use a paper-based chart if you're working with large groups of pupils, but it's worth noting that we do have an Excel version of this chart that you can download from the Ware Support Centre if you would prefer to use that. There's some direct guidance on how to use it there too. We have listened to feedback about some younger pupils finding the standard acceleration chart on the previous slide too difficult to use due to the small lines and having to estimate where the dot goes. To combat this, we've developed a slightly simplified chart that may help pupils to gain confidence in charting before moving on to the official standard acceleration chart. However, please note that this chart is only appropriate for 1-minute timings and packs with 50 cards or less. Along the top and the bottom of the chart, you will notice the days of the week. We recommend adding the date for each of the Mondays onto the chart before you begin plotting any data. Along the vertical axis, you will see numbers ranging from 1 to 50. These correspond to the number of cards. Pupils should follow the corresponding day of the week up and draw a dot for the number they got correct and a cross for the number of cards they placed in their not yet pile. We encourage you to annotate this chart with anything that you might find useful in future. Draw lines each time you make a change to be able to see the effect that it's had clearly. If there are any scores that you think might need to be treated as an anomaly, such as a pupil forgetting their glasses for a session or not feeling very well, then make a note of that too. In case you're printing these slides out and it's useful to make notes, here's a written step-by-step of the strategy, starting with shuffling the cards to charting scores. Please pause these slides if you need to do so. On this slide, there are 2 videos containing demonstrations of the SAFMEDS strategy in action, so that you can see what it looks like in real life when it gets put together at speed. In the interests of time today, I'm only going to play the video on the left now. If you're curious to see what this looks like with pupils in schools, then please follow the link in the bottom right-hand corner to view the other video. We will place all the links that you may need in the description box for your convenience.
Okay, give your cards a good shuffle. Ready? Go.
3, 2, 14, 9, don't know, 17, 6, don't know, 13, 12, 14, 16, 10, 12, 4, 14, 15, 8, 5, 13, don't know, 7, 4, 12, 13, 9, 8, 14, 16, 12, 12, 13, 10, don't know, 11, don't know, 11, 16, 15, 5, 19, 7, 6, don't know, 13, don't know, 14, 17, 18, 18.
Time up. Count your cards.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28.
That was great, well done. Write down your score.
And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay, now pick up the ones that you weren't sure and we'll go through them together. What's 8 plus 6?
I don't know.
So, have a look. Okay.
So 8 and 6 is 14.
What's 7 and 6?
13.
Very good. What's 4 plus 2?
6.
Well done. 6 and 5.
I don't know.
So if I had 6 and you have 5, how many do we have together?
11.
Well done. Okay. So let's go again, but this time let's see if you can get through more cards. I don't mind which pile they go on, just get quicker. Okay, so give your cards a good shuffle. Okay, ready? So which score is your best for the day?
This one.
Yeah, let's plot that one on your graph.
Okay. Monday.
Here's some tips to help you when you first introduce the SAFMEDS strategy to the pupils in your school. Encourage them to spend no more than 3 to 5 seconds on any card. The aim of the game is speed, so if they need to hesitate, encourage them to place the card in their not yet pile. Watch out for cheating. This can happen when you scale SAFMEDS beyond one-to-one practice. We'll discuss this in a little bit more detail later. Teachers who timetable the SAFMEDS sessions in find it much easier to ensure that pupils get consistent practice that they need. Running the sessions at the same time in the same room each week can help establish that routine. We use the term not yet to keep things positive and to promote the idea that it's okay to put cards in the not yet pile. It's there to help pupils identify the skills that they don't know fluently yet and what they might need some help with. Let pupils be as independent as possible. This is something that they frequently report as an element of the SAFMED sessions that they enjoy, and it will lead to better fluency scores. If you need to adapt this because you're working with a pupil with poor fine motor skills, then of course it's okay to do so, even if this means having to hold the cards for them. Before pupils move on to more difficult packs, it's important that they can demonstrate fluency on the preceding one. This usually falls within a score range of around 40 to 60 correct cards in 1 minute, especially for one-step skills such as single-digit addition. This target specifically applies to the handheld flashcard approach. Ultimately, we want pupils to be able to work through the entire pack as quickly as they can without making any mistakes before they move on. It's really important that you check with their learning pictures regularly to ensure that they're making consistent progress. If they're not, intervene quickly. There are 13 different learning pictures that can emerge on the standard acceleration chart. These pictures fall into 3 broad categories: improving, maintaining, and worsening. If a pupil's data shows a maintaining or worsening picture over 3 consecutive sessions, consider making a change to prevent prolonged periods of non-progression. Make one change at a time and indicate it by drawing it as a vertical line on the chart. As a visual reminder from the precision teaching training, here are the 13 learning pictures that can emerge on the chart. Okay, it's time to apply this knowledge to some scenarios. These are all based on real and common scenarios that have happened in schools, but we have changed the names to protect anonymity. A teacher is working with a group of 10 pupils, and they're practicing telling the time using the SAFMED strategy. All of the children in the group seem to be making good progress, apart from one child, Alice. Let's look at her data. This chart shows us that Alice's correct score, the dots, are maintaining. She's consistently only able to answer 2 cards correctly within 1 minute, and she's placing more cards in her not yet pile. The crosses have accelerated from 3 cards to 5 cards in a week. When looking at worsening or maintaining data on a chart, there are 4 questions that you should ask yourself. Are there prerequisite tool or composite skills that a pupil needs to master first? If this is the case, the pack or the task might be too difficult. Is the pupil able to answer some cards correctly, but not all of them? If this is the case, you may need to simplify their current pack to focus on building fluency of the skills that they do know and provide some additional instruction or support for the remaining cards through error correction. Question whether the pupil is focused on the cards or something around them. You may need to reduce distractions in the surrounding environment. Finally, could it be an engagement issue? If so, consider how you might make the task more motivating or appealing for that pupil. Because Alice was consistently only answering a few cards correctly, my instinct would have been to assess whether the pack was too difficult. To do this, I'd go through the whole pack with Alice without a timer to establish which cards she could answer, which she could do but hesitates on, and which ones she doesn't know yet. This can be a really useful exercise to do one-on-one with a child if you're ever unsure about what the learning picture is showing you. What I would have expected to find out is that Alice could only recognise certain cards in the pack, such as the o'clocks. If this was the case, I would have suggested that she worked exclusively on these during the 1-minute timing to build fluency, and then during the error correction step, her teacher would have explicitly taught her to recognise the half-past cards, then the quarter past, and then the quarter to, until Alice was confident enough for her to reintegrate them back into the pack. What actually happened was a bit of a surprise. When she went through the cards with her teacher, she was able to answer a large proportion of them fluently. It was possible that working one-to-one helped her feel more focused and or motivated, so her teacher carried it on to see what effect it would have on her data. As you can see, Alice's corrects went up in the following week from 5 correct to 15 correct, and her not yets ranged from 1 to 6. This suggests that working on a one-to-one had a positive effect. If you find yourself in this scenario and it's feasible to continue working with that pupil on a one-to-one, then carry on doing so. If it's not feasible, try working in a slightly smaller group so that you can rotate between pupils to support them on a one-to-one more regularly and reduce the number of distractions in the environment. A new scenario now. A teacher is working with a small group of pupils on their times tables. He notices that one of the boys, Joey, is struggling one day. He collects data the following week and noticed a pattern. Let's look at that data. Joey's scores suggested that he's working towards mastery on Monday, Wednesdays and Thursdays. However, every Friday his scores seemed to drop significantly. We needed to figure out what was different about the sessions on Fridays that seemed to affect Joey's engagement with the SAFMEDS strategy. First, we questioned the timing of the session. If they went to bed late the night before, some people struggle to find the energy that they need for fluency timings first thing in the morning. If the session is straight after lunch, some pupils might prefer carrying on their conversation with their friends than doing timing sprints, etc. If pupils are being brought out of class for targeted support, it's worth checking which lesson they are being brought out of to do their SAFMEDS timings. We also questioned whether there were any obvious distractions in the environment during that Friday session, such as a music lesson in the room next door or pupils walking between classes in the middle of the session. In this particular example, we found that Joey was being taken out of his favourite subject on Fridays, which was music. He could also hear all of his friends playing musical instruments in the room next door. If you find yourself in a similar situation, it's worth considering 2 things. First, how easy would it be to move that session to a different time, day, or location? This might be a possibility if you're working one-to-one with a pupil. If you can't change the session, consider whether it would cause more damage than help to keep bringing that pupil out for that session each week. It's important that pupils don't carry over any resentment surrounding coming out of class to other sessions as time goes on. If they seem to be making good progress without it, then you could try reducing the number of sessions and establish the effect that has on their data. We have a catalogue of resources to help pupils use the SAFMEDS strategy at home on the GWER Support Centre, so if you need to make up an extra session that way, then you could explore that too. This is an example of something that you might face within group settings. In this school, the teacher applied a peer tutoring approach to class-wide use of the SAFMEDS strategy. One pupil did a timing whilst the other observed and helped with the error correction element before swapping roles. When she reviewed the data at the end of the week, she realised that all of the pupils were progressing well. However, Tommy was getting higher scores when he was working with his friend compared to when he was working on a one-to-one with her. Let's look at the data. As you can see from the Friday scores, when Tommy was working with Harry, he recorded that he was able to answer 28 cards correctly, yet when he was working with his teacher, he was only able to answer 1. This could suggest one of 2 things. Tommy could get nervous when he's being observed by his teacher, explaining the drop in score, or he could have been cheating when he was working with his friend. To establish this for sure, try to observe a timing discreetly. In this particular example, it turned out that Tommy was cheating. It's worth mentioning that data from previous research studies suggest that children typically improve their correct score by about 2 cards per session on numeracy packs. If you see an improvement of 10 cards per day, you might want to observe a timing just to validate this. It's important to address cheating early to establish an accurate learning picture. If we plot the data recorded by Harry, we might suspect that Tommy was making good progress towards fluency and not intervene. Whilst if we look at the real picture of his learning, we can see that he needs some additional support. It's important that we establish the real learning picture in this situation to provide Tommy with the best support. In this instance, Tommy was cheating and his friend Harry was encouraging the behaviour. They both had identical scores written down on their sheets. Pupils cheat for a reason, so it's important to think about why. Often it's because they find the work too difficult. Cheating provides a way of avoiding feeling embarrassed about asking for help and still receiving the praise that comes with thinking that they're doing good work. In group SAFMEDS settings, pupils may overhear their peers' scores and feel disheartened that they aren't doing as well. From the day you introduce this strategy to a group, we suggest that you promote the idea of not sharing scores out loud to reduce the chance of unhealthy peer competition and cheating. If you do find yourself in a situation where you need to address cheating, there are a few things you can try. Reward honest scores. When you work one-to-one with a pupil, praise the progress that they've made whilst working with you, with phrases such as, "Well done, you got 18 cards when you worked with me last time and you got 20 today." That way, they're receiving praise that they deserve on scores that look like an honest reflection of their ability. Set attainable score challenges to keep children engaged and focused. If they know that you're not expecting scores as high as what they're recording, then they may be less inclined to cheat. We tend to encourage pupils to try and beat their personal best by a card or two each session, or use the goal-setting approach guided by acceleration lines on a pupil's standard acceleration chart. Reiterate to the whole group that it's okay to put cards in their not yet pile. You don't necessarily need to single pupils out to address the issue. You could also consider the seating arrangements of your pupils to put them into smaller groups of similar abilities. When you first introduce the SAFMEDS strategy in your school, encourage pupils to keep their scores to themselves. Their journey towards mastery is personal to them. They will master some packs quicker than others, and that's okay. They don't need to compare scores with other pupils in the group. If you opt to use a pair-directed approach, you may need to consider who you place together. In this example, Tommy and Harry were good friends and encouraged each other to cheat, so it was a good decision to pair them up with others in the group. The pupil you are working with might be cheating because they find the pack too difficult. Assess whether this is the case, and if necessary, build their confidence with an easier pack first. If they need some additional one-to-one instruction, then you should be able to identify that by going through the pack with them without a timer, as discussed in the first scenario. If you decide to ask a pupil more directly about cheating, the get-out-of-jail-free card approach might be a more effective way of getting an honest time trial and avoiding confrontation. For example, provide an option for the pupil to place blame on an inanimate object like the timer, such as the quote in the speech bubble on the slide. Another example might be using the statement, "Your correct cards seem a little high. Do you think maybe you counted the pile of the cards you didn't go through rather than the ones on the mat? It's an easy mistake to make." If it continues to be a persistent problem and their observed scores do not continue to improve, consider reducing the difficulty of the SAFMEDS pack. The next few slides highlight the current resources available as part of the SAFMEDS GWARE package and where to find them. This information is correct as of May 2021. On the GWARE Support Centre, you'll be able to find over 200 bilingual flashcard packs to support skills on the National Mathematics and Numeracy Framework. These aim to support pupils across the 4 to 16 years continuum to build fluency of basic math skills. Here, you'll be able to not only find the flashcards, but all the downloadable and printable resources that you will need to get started using the SAFMEDS strategy in the classroom, and to invite parents and guardians to support their children to use it at home too. To find the Support Centre, you will first need to head over to the GWARE homepage. The Support Centre link is in the top banner of the webpage. You'll then see a page that looks like this. If you click the search icon, you will be able to search SAFMEDS, and all of the resources that you need will come up. In response to feedback over the years, we have been working to develop a bespoke website to enable pupils to practice using the SAFMEDS strategy without the need for handheld flashcards. This is a new resource that we still need to field test in order to assess the effectiveness. However, it is available now if you'd like to try it in your classroom, or to enable pupils to fit in additional practice at home. The link to the website can be found at the bottom of the screen and in the video description box. Once a pupil pastes it into the search bar, they will be asked what language they would like to see the site in, English or Khmer. Once they've selected a language, they will be presented with a list of maths and numeracy topics. These mirror the ones listed on the GWER Support Centre for the printable handheld cards. After picking a topic, they will be asked to select which skill they would like to practice. These skills increase in difficulty from the top to the bottom of the page and support skills across the 4 to 16 continuum. They then have 1 minute to answer as many questions as they can. After reading the question in their head and saying the answer out loud, they can click the Show Answer button, followed by Correct or Not Yet. In the corner of the screen, you will also see a visual school counter. You can take a quick peek as you walk around the group. After 1 minute, the game will automatically terminate and the pupil will be able to see their score. They write this down on a piece of paper and then can either play the pack again or complete the error correction step. This website is functional on laptops, iPads, and smartphones. There is a more comprehensive video tutorial to support the use of this website on the GWER Support Centre. We've received several questions about printing over the years, so we've compiled an FAQ document on the GWER Support Centre to support schools with this. This will be periodically updated in light of new information, so check there if your question isn't answered in this training. There are over 200 packs of cards available on the GWER Support Centre, so we recommend choosing a particular topic, such as addition, to focus on when you first get started. In each topic drop-down, you'll notice that the packs are numbered in order of progressive difficulty. You should start where you feel is appropriate and work up or down the skill ladder based on your pupil's progress. You do not need to print out all of the cards in this folder, as it's likely that some will be too challenging or too easy for the pupils that you are targeting. You may also find that you're able to skip certain packs with some pupils because they will not need additional practice with bridging skills such as adding 9 and 11. We recommend picking 2 or 3 skills to help get you started and then printing additional packs as and when you need them. If you're printing the cards in school, you'll want to use something that's a bit thicker than paper so the pupils can't see the answer through it, is easier to turn, and will last the test of time. Nevertare is thin enough to go through most standard printers, has a matte finished, and as the name suggests is indestructible unless you take a pair of scissors to it. If you're unable to print the cards in school, you could contact a commercial printer in your local authority to see if they're able to help you print and collate the cards. Alternatively, you could raise your printing queries at your next cluster meeting to see if any other local schools can offer any advice or help. If you are unable to cover the costs and practicalities of printing cards, then you can use the SAFMEDS GWER website that we discussed on the last slide. However, please use this site with caution, as it is not a complete replacement for the handheld approach unless you are unable to meet printing demands. As we have mentioned, this is a new resource and we have yet to evaluate it with regards to fluency aims and outcomes. Across the last few slides, we'll present some real feedback from teachers and pupils with regards to their thoughts and experiences of using the SAFMEDS strategy in the classroom. When asked what they think helps the success of a SAFMEDS programme, teachers have reported that allowing pupils to take ownership of their own resources, including the cards and score tables, encourages them to be more confident. They have also identified the importance of being organised to ensure that the sessions happen regularly in an appropriate space. This highlights the importance of timetabling the sessions into the school calendar to ensure sufficient practice opportunities. Moreover, teachers have found that pupils in their schools enjoy coming out to complete the SAFMED sessions, and they're becoming increasingly more confident with maths as time goes on. They find that it really helps that pupils can see their progress over time. Charting and reacting to data is a key part of the precision teaching approach, and some pupils are motivated by being able to visually see their scores improve towards mastery. The pupils themselves repeatedly report that they enjoy using the SAFMED strategy to help them with maths too. When asked if they'd like to take the resources home, many said yes, and that they'd be happy to do the time trials on their own without the support of a parent or sibling. That draws our introduction to the SAFMEDS strategy to a close. We hope that this has provided you with some tools and thoughts to help your pupils build fluency within your classroom. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact Katie. Her email address is on the screen now. We also offer monthly drop-in sessions to support the use of the SAFMEDS strategy and precision teaching in schools across the Gware region. If you'd like to access this support, check the Gware Bulletin for dates and the booking link.